Well, it's great to be back in Southwest Florida, and I want to thank Sheriff Carmine Marceno for hosting us here, and also for all the good work that he's doing. If you look at the crime here in Lee County in terms of the trends, you compare it to a lot of places in our country, you're seeing major spikes in different places in our country. And I think one of the reasons is we've got a lot of good folks like Carmine and his deputies and everyone here working. Also, the state of Florida stands for law and order. We back our law enforcement personnel. We also have a number of legislators here today. Senator Pasadomo couldn't make it with us, but I want to acknowledge her when we're in Southwest Florida. I want to thank Senator Ray Rodriguez, Representatives Botana, Persons, Malika, and Gio Lombardo for their hard work in this most recent legislative session. We asked the legislature to do a lot, and they delivered for the people of Florida. I think we have a number of good things to talk about, and we're here to talk about one of those good things. Obviously, we were very concerned with public safety during this session. We passed the strongest anti-rioting legislation in the country that really says a couple things. One is, we're not going to let local governments defund law enforcement. Now, granted, in Southwest Florida, that's probably not as much of a concern, but that's something that could happen in some of these other enclaves in the state of Florida. By passing this bill and me signing it, that is not going to happen. If a local jurisdiction tries to do that, we're restoring the funding. We also have strong penalties for people that are violent and that threaten others, harm others, or harm people's property, and basically sending a message to everyone that wears the uniform: the state of Florida stands with you. And I think that was something that showed great leadership in the legislature. I was happy to sign it, but I also understood that this has been a year like no other. If you go back from the beginning of the coronavirus pandemic, we have a lot of folks who had the luxury of maybe working from home or doing meetings on Zoom. The folks who are first responders, people that work for our sheriffs, for our police chiefs, people who are EMTs and firefighters, you can't do the job in public safety on Zoom. You got to show up, you got to wear the uniform, you got to be out, and particularly in those early days and weeks where there was so much uncertainty about what was going to happen with COVID, the men and women who wear the uniform were there for us day in and day out. And of course, we saw last summer riots throughout the United States. You didn't see that up here like you did in Minneapolis or Wisconsin or some of those other places. But law enforcement was under the gun. They were being attacked. They were being, I think, maligned in many respects unfairly. And I think it was important to recognize that they had to still put the uniform on, go out there. And yes, the state of Florida stood with them. Most of our local communities did. But that was a tough environment, I think, for a lot of people to have to work in. So all the things that we've seen over the last year, I thought it was important to do something to show our debt of gratitude. So while some over the last year have been talking about defunding law enforcement, we're proud to say we're funding law enforcement and then some with $1,000 bonuses for all sworn law enforcement, all fire, all EMT personnel throughout the state of Florida. So that's about 175,000 folks. I asked the legislature to do it. They passed it. When I sign the budget, we'll eventually get funds released, and you're going to see bonuses going out to our first responders, hopefully as soon as we can get it done. But I think that this is something that is warranted. It's a way for us to say thank you, and I'm glad that the legislature answered the call. So we're excited to be here. We're excited to celebrate a really great achievement in terms of showing gratitude for our first responders and our law enforcement personnel. So I want to let Sheriff Marceno come up and say a few words in this regard.